Well, hi everybody. It's the Stratosphere Lounge once again. Whoa! See, this is what happens when you have touch devices. Hey, how's everybody doing? It's great to be here. It's good to be back. Missed a couple weeks. I hate it when I miss two in a row. But we're back for episode number 137. And I just want to say something. Before we get started, I was looking at all the names of the people that are here live, and if you watch it on YouTube, we're certainly very grateful, but it sure is a lot more fun live, seems to me anyway. And I see so many names up here from people who have been here for 137 episodes in some cases, and I just wanted to tell you, Stratosphere Lounge Live regulars, that it's like coming home. It's like coming home for Thanksgiving to see these names here. It's just really, really terrific. For me, I just thought you might want to know that. It means the world to me, and I learned so much from you guys through the comments here, through the questions we get on our Facebook page, through all of it. So I just wanted to tell all of you who've been coming in watching this thing live for years now, thank you. It really is in fact like coming home and seeing friends. So that's really. Really terrific. Aesop's Retreat, and Cheryl and all the rest of it, and all of them. Eyes and Fire, all of you guys. Thank you very much. Anyway, we got some questions today that I like. I didn't take one of them, but I just saw on the live stream here that this has been a pretty stressful holiday season, and that, there's an awful lot going on still, and they all need a drink. And if you don't know the rules for drinking in this show, then somebody's going to have to tell you about them in the live stream. But you know what? I'm just not going to cover that subject anymore. There was a question about that, but, it's just, I just didn't want to take it. I was thinking about it when I drove into the bottom of the parking space here, and I just, went the lever from drive and put it into, PARK, and I just decided, I don't know if it would be worth it or not. I came up, I modified the scripts a little bit. I made, put a little ink down there, made a little MARK on it, and it just doesn't seem, it just doesn't seem like it's, oh God, here we are again in the DARK, my goodness gracious. I think that'll do it, hopefully. Anyway, that was just a small little LARK that we went off there. So there you go. Anyway, it's time to move on, and hopefully that'll hold you. Hopefully that'll hold the little bastards. And anyway, off we go. I'm going to just jump into the questions here tonight because I've got not a whole lot of new stuff to say, to be perfectly deadly honest with you about it. Although the first question is the kind of thing that I would normally take prior to going into the real question. So I took a question from down in the depths of the unknown comment sections, way down where there are two thumbs up or something. And so we're going to start with Max Sharpnell, who asks, what is it with all the memes on this page lately? That is an interesting question because as of today, they're not there anymore. We hired a social media company, and when they first submitted these memes to look at, I looked at them, and of the four that they gave me to look at, I said there are two that I like, one that I like, one I can live with, and two that I don't particularly like. And so I pulled them out of the bin. And the guy told me, okay, well, this one's probably worth, 700 likes or 60,000 views, some incredible number like that. And I said, you know what, I'm going to just let this guy do his job. And so we did for a month, and our reach has gone way up. Our Facebook page likes went from 87,000 to about 105,000. That's very good. And our engagement, those pipelines that we were talking about, opening up the sort of the blood vessels on Facebook, that actually got done too. But to be honest with you, what happened was we were getting nothing but memes, and they're very aggressive, and there's too many of them. And the one thing that I was certainly hoping for was to there's a few things that I've actually said, and I think maybe 2 or 3 of those were used, and the rest of them were just done by people who did that. So look, they're done. I was hoping that they wouldn't be this much of the stuff. We were supposed to be getting some video stuff and cut downs and all the rest of it. So we're going to do a few more of them because they're very effective. I mean, they're really effective. And so we're going to keep doing some of them. There won't be nearly as many of them, and they're going to come from me. It's going to be my words there, or something that I just happen to like. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to get into the social media openings a little more. We're going to probably end up with somebody on staff for that to happen, I think. But it was a tremendous advance in our reach. So we're just going to continue to do it and certainly make it sound a whole lot more like my website. So that's what's going to happen. And I actually put this up on a Facebook post, but the place to put it was right here, and that is simply this. And I know Eisenfire, the winged angel with the flaming sword, guardian of the Stratosphere Lounge vaults, and Aesop's Retreat is probably perfect for this too. I did get a contest to see how many actual quotes of mine we could use, and we got a pretty good response. We used about 3 of them, and we're going to be sending those people their T-shirts. But there wasn't as many as I would like. So here's the short form of what I'm trying to say. One of the main things that keeps these numbers up, one of the things that keeps this, again, I have a limited understanding of this, but here's my limited understanding. Facebook has algorithms that determine where your post gets seen and by whom. One of the things that they do is they send it to people that you like or that have liked your page, but they certainly don't send it to all of them. And what essentially happens is this. The more you post and the more that people share what you post, the algorithms at Facebook say this is content that people want to see. This is content that is traveling well, I think is the expression. It's traveling very well. So content that does well does better. The math and the programming, the code just opens it up. And the more people like it, the wider it opens up. And I thought, man, that's just weird. And then finally it dawned on me, if you think about it, Facebook, think about the number of inputs that come into Facebook every second. The total number of inputs, pictures, post updates, videos, all of it, just is enormous. It's a vast, enormous sea of information. And if every single thing got the same amount of time, we'd be stuck reading stuff that we don't particularly care about. So it is basically looking at, you launch this little boat, and if the current starts to take the boat, then they turn up the current. And if it doesn't, then they turn it down. So one of the things that happened to us, in addition to putting on, 25,000 members, 20,000 members, something like that, yeah, somewhere in there. Rather, not members, sorry, that would be a different discussion. 20,000 page likes on Facebook. Aside from doing that, it opened up the arteries significantly. Now, the trick is going to be to keep those open because we're just not going to be doing those memes anymore. And I would like to do nothing but quotes, I'm certainly not conceited about this. As you probably know, many writers get paid by the word. I get paid by the ton. Ton of delivered paper is how I get paid. And if you have 7,000 hours of constant chattering, I would imagine that little bits of it make some sense, and we could put them on one of these memes. So if anybody out there, or anybody in the Stratosphere Lounge, or anybody has any sense of what particular quotes you liked, if you want to send it to info@billwhittle.com. If you're the first person, if we use that one first, we will send you a This Is My Safe Space t-shirt, and many thanks. But we're just going to be having some fun with it. So I wanted to get that out of the way. It's going to go back to a lot more friendly stuff. We've got the pathways open now, so we're going to try and keep them going, and we're going to be dealing with some new people who I think are going to do a very good job, and who are well established in this field. So anyway, that's that. what the heck was I going to say? It doesn't matter. It's not that important, undoubtedly. Oh, I do remember. Just because we love this, what the show's about, is just sharing kind of some of the inside information. Not all of the inside information, but some of it. I am going to start a new series. It's not a new. Yeah, it is a new series. I'm going to start doing. It's not going to be daily content, but I've been watching what's been going on over at Daily Wire, and if Klavan can get those kind of numbers, then needless to say, we should just be stratospheric, if you'll pardon the expression. So the question is, what do we do with that? What does it look like? I had originally just thought it should just turn on the camera and have it look like this. Because it's certainly the easiest thing for me to do. And then after some reflection, some discussion, realized that this is what Stratosphere Lounge looks like, and Right Angle looks an awful lot like this. So this is something we need to break open. And then I was doing some research last night. I was talking with my fiance, who's doing very, very well. Thank you very much for asking, all of you kind, lovely people, who is an expert photographer and just tremendous visual sense. And so she was quite adamant about the fact that we should get these things done out of the office, or at the very least out of this chair. And in order for me to do these, 2-3 times a week, they have to be very simple. It's not the kind of thing where we've got the green screen in the back there, and that's certainly got its place. And going in there, I think yesterday I did 12 shows. I did 4 right angles. I did 5 or 6 time over targets and a Nexus report. But yes, the people that we're talking about for the social media, the new people, are experts in things that are things like podcasts, which we haven't done, iTunes, SoundCloud, all of this stuff that we've just been missing. So podcasts are coming, and what we need to do now is do what they've been doing very effectively over there, which is to get content that's fresh enough and regular enough so that it drives people into the membership, much the same way that a shepherd would guide the cattle, or the sheep in this case, I suppose, down the chutes of the charnel house towards the rotating knives. In any event, so it's going to be a podcast, going to be all these things, and so then here's what really happened, was really cool. She was saying, just shoot it on the iPhone. Just do it on the iPhone. You can upload it from anywhere. Just shoot it and upload it. I said, Naka, here's the problem is if you shoot on the iPhone can do really some nice pictures, but the audio, if it sounds like you're far away, it just is not good. And so we started talking about this, and we said, it's got to be there's got to be things that can help for shooting on the iPhone. And then we went out there, and we saw something called, oh my God, In any event, we're going to be picking one up with one of these little kits up. It's absolutely astonishing. There's one for the iPad or the iPhone. It's basically 2 handles, a piece of plastic, and your iPhone goes here, and there's a hole for the camera. And then you get various lenses that you can screw on, which means you get a really good wide-angle fisheye, or you get a very good telephoto. There's a couple of mounting shoes on the top. You can put a boom mic up there, and they've got these little things called Luma Cubes, I think they are. It's a light this big. It's a LED light that big, and it puts out 1,500 lumens. It'll set your hair on fire. It's really remarkable, and I've got a little wireless lav, and so I'm going to take her advice, and maybe we'll do a segment out on my balcony at my apartment, which overlooks the 405 freeway at night, and as long as the audio is good, we'll be there. But what I'm really going to try and do is just basically stay on the news story of the day, or certainly of the week. So we need a much quicker response time. The work that I do takes, as you know, hours and hours of extremely deep cogitation and reflection and going back to the classics and all the rest. But the fact is, the stuff that we do has to settle enough for me to have an opinion on it, and then we have to get it shot and produced and uploaded and graphics and all the rest of it. Oh my God, there are people behind me. So we'll see you later, Carla. Yeah, so this is going to be coming, and this little kit is actually really inexpensive. And just to wrap this up, apparently there are a number of people who have professional cameras, 4K cameras, or professionals who prefer the iPhone, especially the iPhone 7 shoots 4K video. It shoots 4K video. That's astonishing to me. Astonishing. Nice thing about shooting 4K is we shoot 4K for firewalls and all the rest of the programs we do in the green room. Since we broadcast at 1080, which is standard high def, and 4K is what is it? Extra high def, something. It's even better. So since the 4K image has got so much information, you can do a digital zoom in and get a close up wide shot, and there's enough picture density so that the close up will hold up. So if you're shooting on 4K and you do a big push up, you push in on half of it, or I guess it's a quarter of it, you get a normal standard 1080 high def image. So anyway, it's terrific. We're gonna try the lapel mic as Govern just mentioned, and at the same time we're gonna have this shotgun mic and get mobile. And I think we can just go remote. We do one from the airplane hangar, and just all kinds of fun things. So anyway, that's coming in some form or another. Haven't really decided yet, but that's coming. And taking things like Stratosphere Lounge and all the rest of it, and really running it out into all of the ultra high def. Thank you very much, Asma Smith. Yeah, so we're going to open up all these other platforms and Instagram and all the rest of it. It's there was a time, and not too long ago, really, when I really thought, it's kind of silly, really, this whole thing. But that's my dinosaur brain reacting to change. I think we mentioned before that since I'm a TV guy, I take enormous pleasure, and I spend way too much time on kind of cool opening graphic segments for these shows. And if you're a non-member and you haven't seen the time over target opening or the Nexus report opening, or I like the right angle opening, I like the firewall opening, all of it. But and we've got the new thing, the plan, which I'm going to put up on Facebook directly. And all of these things are terrific. But I was told many months ago now that people will give you 3 seconds, and if you don't get their attention in 3 seconds, they're gone. And as I said before, the viewership chart looks like this. It's 1, 2, 3, and it just it is a cliff. It's damn near a vertical cliff. And then it starts to stabilize considerably, so that the people who get past 3 or 4 seconds are going to stay with you till about 5 minutes or so, and then they start to fall off. So almost nobody sees the end of the show. And my commercial is at the end of the show. The number of people who will see that, hey, we need your help at BillWhittle.com on the back of a firewall is, I bet it's less than 1% of the total views. It's certainly not more than 10%. So yeah, so I had to face the fact that, yes, Bill, you like credits. Yes, they look cool. Yes, all of this, yes, but you can't do them because you're going to lose viewers, because the internet thing is very, very different. It's just different. Now, I have made an arrangement with our friends over at Turning Point USA, and we're going to be doing at least, we've got a commitment to 15 videos with them in addition to the firewalls. So we are, these new ones I'm going to call We the People version 2.0. I know a lot of people, not a lot of people, some people said, oh, it's really not version 2.0, we're not really changing things. And I'm saying, look, it's We the People version 2.0 in black Helvetic on a white background. And the stuff we're going to be doing is going to be primarily pitched towards young people. But what we're going to do is this is hard for me, because anybody who goes back to eject knows that these essays were 15,000 words, and then the afterburners got down to 12 minutes, 13, 14 minutes, and tried to get them down to 8, and consistently could get them down around 6 or 7. But these 15 new ones that we're going to be doing are going to be, I'm going to make a ironclad rule that it will not be longer than 2 minutes, and I hope to get it closer to 1. Because what I'm trying to do with these 15 videos is is isolate every single argument, and not try to run 2 or 3 of them together to make a case. So when I was originally thinking about doing a video on capitalism, included in the capitalism video, I was going to talk about wealth creation, and I was going to talk about income inequality and a couple of other things. And then I realized, no, wealth creation is it's its own idea, and income is equality is its own argument and idea. And we need to get these things pared down. What I want to do is I want to deliver hand grenades to people. I want people to have conservative hand grenades. I want them to, the next time somebody gives them the wealth inequality thing, the income inequality, just here's your hand grenade. Just pull the pin and throw it. You don't have to show them the video. The arguments are so good and they'd be so short, presumably, that they'd be easy to remember. And if they're not easy to remember, I've failed. So in any event, the first 15 are... Do I have that page here somewhere? Oh, excuse me 1 second. Let me find it, just because I think the topics are interesting. So 15 of them, new look, much more casual, a lot more informal, and nevertheless, green screen stuff where I can bring up some pictures. What am I looking at? Yeah, maybe. Yep, there they are. So here's the 15 in order. And by the way, I want to ask a question, you guys. When I get done with this, hopefully I can remember it. So in order, they're going to be, number 1 is going to be money, 2 is socialism, 3 is capitalism, 4 is corporations, 5 is government, 6 is wealth creation, 7 is income inequality, 8 is taxes, 9 is equality, 10 is the rule of law, 11 is free speech, 12 is self-defense, 13 is energy, 14 is entitlements, and 15 is virtue. We have reason to believe that if these things do as well as we like to think they'll do, that there'll be more funding for more of them downstream. We're not making a whole lot on these videos, but I think they're going to travel very well. I think they're going to be very small, tight, cool, clean, and just go. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. And I really like these topics. And just money, for example, I think I can probably do that in a minute and a half. And, that's really what it is, isn't it? I mean, when I was talking about these topics with Charlie Kirk, who's a remarkable young fella, he said, can we originally commissioned 5, and he wanted to say, we do safe spaces and free speech and stuff. And I just... I thought about it, and I thought, the main reason that most of these young people are socialists is because they've been convinced that socialism is kind and capitalism isn't, and they don't understand anything about economics or government or any of it. So we have to start at the beginning, and we have to assume that they know nothing, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to build a series for people who know nothing on why this country works the way it does. And the first thing is money. What is it? What is money? And I've got some fun stuff for that too. By the way, every now and then I get a comment I just like so much, I just have to repeat it for all of you. And Silent Gloves, who appears to be new, I don't think I remember that name before, says, my favorite part of the Stratosphere Lounge is when Bill stares off into the distance and mumbles. That is awesome. That's my favorite part too. I'm probably unaware of it. Oh, and by the way, since we're talking about people in the chat room, Foghorn, you missed the opening where I praise you, all of you, all of the regulars, and I'm just curious to know how unbelievably inspirational it must have been to be sitting there in the audience. I have no doubt that you were when Chuckles the Clown came by and gave you guys the big news that we haven't had any terrorist attacks in the United States since he became president. So. I would love to hear about that, I'm sure. I saw pictures of people in the military. You know what's funny? It's actually funny to watch people not clapping. There's listening and there's clapping, and then there is actually not clapping. It's a slightly different posture, but it's real. You can look at that people and say, those guys aren't clapping. They're not just listening, they're not clapping. It's kind of fun. So anyway, enough about that. Let's move on with the rest of these questions here. Martin Wendelboe, or maybe Wendelboe. Sorry, Martin. It seems a new name. It's certainly good to see you. asks this: should we encourage Calexit? Let them prove the absolute boneheaded failure of leftist economic policies once and for all, and stop being a drain on the American economy, and assure that Democrats never again come anywhere close to a popular nor electoral vote in a presidential election. I'll bet when they are desperate, hat in hand, not even Mexico will take them. I like the sound of that, except I can't say them. I have to say us because I'm one of them. It's amazing how the Trump victory has brought out they brought out little tiny little flashes of manhood and citizenship and self-sufficiency, and it doesn't last very long because none of them really act on it. But when Trump became president and they're all saying we should go get guns, it's like, yeah, that's a really sound idea. You should be afraid of your government, and giving Obama powers, all kinds of powers, means that someday they can give them to somebody else. They've been governing for 8 years as if the Democrats were never going to lose again. So that is really, let me look at this again. Yeah, California exit. So on some level, the idea of them talking about California leaving the Union is just really kind of fun. It's interesting to hear, and I think it's a good thing for the country. I love the idea that liberals and progressives are actually considering the idea of dissolving the Union. That's an indication of, well, first of all, in their case, it's not based on anything theoretical or no principles involved. They just hate Trump, and they want to, if they can't win, they turn around and go home. These are people who, if they can't win, they take their football and go home. So I think it's great. Let me tell you why I wanted to take this question. Well, first of all, it was a highly ranked question. Did I say Martin? It's Merlin. Beg your pardon. How do I make a mistake like that? I'll tell you why I wanted to take this, Merlin. I just did a Time Over Target segment for our members. That's a show where I get questions from members, and I answer in 3 minutes to the second. I got a countdown clock, and I wrap everything up right at 3 minutes. And I did one the other day, shot it yesterday, and it was from a younger person who said, my parents are both tremendously big liberal progressives, and anytime the subject of politics comes up, they say to me, well, if you're so conservative, why don't you go live in the South? Everybody's conservative in the South. And then, by the way, why is it that all of the states that are doing really well are blue, and all the backward states like Mississippi and Louisiana are red? You want to explain that to me, sonny boy? And I thought, yeah, I'd be happy to explain that to you. The red states in question, the Deep South red states, are red states because this is the heart of the Confederacy, and the slaves were liberated by Republicans. But that means that these states are way behind the rest of the Union, both industrially and in many other ways. Not to say there's not great stuff happening in Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, all the rest of it. But there's that. But that's not even a real argument as far as I'm concerned. The real argument is this. This kind of person, this kind of progressive, would point to California and say California is the richest state in the nation, and it's a Porky Pig business there. And this is the answer, because this is the truth. It's like, no, California is in fact the poorest state in the Union, and it's deep blue. And when you look at the blue states, you find out that they are in fact the poorest states in the Union. And at this point, they start to get out of their chair and start talking about all of the economy. And obviously, the economy of California is bigger than the economy of Mississippi. However, that's factoring income. And when you factor in debt, you find out that California is the poorest state in the Union. That the amount of money that California owes means that it is the poorest state in the Union. And New York, I'm sure, is right behind it, and the rest of these blue states are right behind it. They look at the blue states and say, wow, look at these incomes. Look at how much money these states are making. They're making that kind of money because they have high urban population density. But the debt that they accrue is unbelievable. And if you have a $1 trillion deficit, I don't know what California's is, but it's getting there. And you're making a certain amount of money, and you refuse to accept the fact that you're making money because you're printing money and because you're borrowing money against the future. It's not hard to get a real economy revving up if you're able to basically take money that doesn't exist and give it to people. So California is not the richest state in the union. It's the poorest state in the union. It's got the biggest deficit, biggest debt. Texas, on the other hand, a nice red state, although it's getting a little pink, and I talked about that in a minute too. Texas, on the other hand, is in fact, I don't know if it's the richest state in the country. It should certainly be close to that, because not only do they have tremendous income, they have essentially very little debt, at least compared to the blue state model. And that's pretty much the end of the argument, because these progressives are looking at income and size of the economy. They're not looking at a balance sheet, because they don't know what a balance sheet is. They absolutely have no idea. And then, of course, the real proof of the pudding is, hey, I got a vote and you got a vote. I've got an opinion, you got an opinion. But which way are the rafts going? They're going from Cuba to Florida. They're not going from Florida to Cuba to get to the free health care. They're risking their lives to come to the United States. So United States wins, and the United States wins because there's empirical evidence of it every day. And likewise for this red state, blue state thing, the empirical evidence is if these progressives were right, then people would be leaving Texas in huge numbers to go to California. Because California being so much more successful than Texas, that's exactly what would happen. But that ain't the way the car's going. The cars are going the other way. They're leaving California in droves. They're going to Texas, and there's so many Californians in Texas now that this is the progressive mindset, really. All you have to know about these people is we're gonna pick up our roots, and we're going to leave the best climate in the world. We're going to move to Texas, which, let's just say, cannot make that claim. And we're going to do it because the economic opportunities are so great and California is so strangled that we liberals are going to leave our little paradise and we're going to go to Texas because we can do so much better there. And the second these people get to Texas, they start voting like progressives and Texas starts turning blue. It's like it's kind of like a kid that steps in dog poop and then decides to brush his feet off and then walks across the street and brings his own dog poop with him in a little bag. And then when he gets across the street to where he is now, he opens up the bag, puts it down, and steps in it again. It's very hard to understand that mentality, but I have some theories. In any event, look who's back with the same question for number 2. It's Merlin Wendelboe. I think this is based on ranking, pretty much. Now a political question, since Merlin has commanded the show from his lofty heights on top of Mount Doom. Should we set up a loudmouth public racist who will endorse Democrats during elections, assuring that no Democrat will ever vote for a candidate who has our man's endorsement? Or is that why the KKK endorsed Trump? That is a profoundly interesting idea. Profoundly interesting idea. It's tremendous political strategy. Is having the most loathsome person you can think of, and as many of them as you can think of, endorsing your opponent. The thing about the KKK is there is a little bit of truth to this. In fact, there's a fairly significant amount of truth, and this is one of the things I liked least about the Trump presidency. I don't think, not only do I not think Donald Trump is a racist, I think Donald Trump is the least racist candidate we've had in this country since Reagan, and maybe since the 50s. I think Donald Trump is not at all a racist or a particular woman hater. Locker room talk is locker room talk. When you actually ask the women who work for them, they pretty much universally say he's a tremendous boss. He pays us really well, pays us a lot of compliments, and never been happier. So I don't buy any of that Trump is a racist thing at all. And I'm getting a little used to hearing that criticism of people. But when the KKK endorsed Donald Trump, and Donald Trump, I heard this with my own ears, was basically trying to say, the KKK, what's that? That's disingenuous and it's unworthy of him, and it's unworthy of the people who support him. Donald Trump surely knows what the KKK is. And there has been speculation from the part of the progressives that Donald Trump did not just immediately disown the KKK in order to win some states that he needed to win in the South. And I think that might be, to some degree, a little bit true. But you have no power over the people that endorse you, just in terms of the endorsement. you know, Kim Jong-un can endorse me and say that he thinks I best represent his communist ideals. I don't think that's true, but I don't have any power to stop him. I can't stop him. You can denounce him and disown it, and I think that has to happen. I think that's required of you morally, and it also is required of you almost spiritually, and you got to do it pretty quick. So if it turned out that I got a KKK endorsement, or the American Nazi Party decided that Bill Whittle's the voice of our entire movement, I would say two things. I'd say, first of all, which Bill Whittle, because it's certainly not me, and secondly, I would say, if this is in fact true, I utterly reject and disdain this endorsement, and I won't have anything to do with these people. I can't control who they endorse, but not only I'm just simply not going to accept it, and I'm not going to do anything other than ignore it. That's what really should happen. I don't know if Trump's playing, footsie with the issue made a difference in the election. I don't know whether it would have cost him any states if he'd come right out immediately and said, no, I'm 100% against this. This is nothing I can do about it, but I utterly reject it. I don't know. I do know that every day now I wake up and I realize that there is a chance for the recovery of this country. There's actual chance. And I think that Donald Trump has, in 4 weeks, done more good for America than Barack Obama's done in 8 years. I mean, every day I wake up, the Dow's at some new high. I think, I've been saying this before, that the U.S. economy is like a gigantic spring, and all of the growth that should have happened during almost a decade has been suppressed by very high taxes and especially by very high regulations. And if the tax rules and Obamacare are changing every day or every year, you can't plan your business if you don't know if you're going to be paying, $5,000 in health coverage, or $15,000 in health coverage, or $38,000 in health coverage. You don't know what the taxes are going to be 2-3 years from now. You don't know what the mandated government nonsense is going to be. So I think there's a tremendous compression of the economy. Now, if Donald Trump, it's already happening. When Donald Trump was elected, he's running on lower taxes and less regulations, fewer regulations, I should say. And so this thing is already starting to expand, and I think Donald Trump is gonna in his first 100 days is gonna reap an unbelievable harvest of good news. Just explosive economic growth. People who've been out of job for years and years back on the job. People who've been pushed out of the military because of all these horrible PC, greenest base in the country kind of thing. Those people are going to have a reason to go back. And I'll get to. Did I have a question about Mattis? If I didn't, I'm going to talk about him right now. It's a nice segue. So anyway, yes, as political strategy, Merlin, it's a wonderful idea. Find somebody absolutely loathsome. Just basically come out and say Nickelback endorses Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton thinks that Jerry Lewis is funny. And just tar them with the association. But certainly Trump can't control that, but I do think he behaved badly, quite badly with the KKK issue. As a matter of fact, I think that was his darkest hour so far in terms of what I think about the guy. All right, moving on to people who aren't named Merlin. Matthew Lloyd has a question. He asks, what do you think of our new Secretary... I knew it was in there somewhere. I didn't know it was next. What do you think of our new Secretary of Defense? Mattis seems like such an awesome guy who has great rapport with the men and women who've served under him. When I heard that Mattis was going to be the Secretary of Defense, I said to myself... There was a wedge point of reality in terms of many things about Donald Trump. There's been, for many issues about Donald Trump, there are two explanations. And one of them is an extremely savvy businessman who finds the best people and gives them the job. That's one explanation. The other explanation is that he's an absolutely insufferable egotist who cannot resist defending himself against any charge whatsoever, and he needs to be surrounded by people who will not overshadow him. And when Mattis was announced, that not only split the wedge for me. That said, basically, this guy is going to appoint people that are good for the job, and not people who are going to be in my shadow. It's the oldest, coarsest, cliche in the world, but nevertheless, it's old and clever because it's that good. First-rate people hire first-rate people, and second-rate people hire third-rate people, and that's exactly how it works. When he announced Mattis, I simply really just couldn't believe it for a while. Mattis is everything that this country needs in a defense secretary right now. Morale has never been lower in the military since Vietnam, as far as I'm concerned. That's certainly what I'm hearing. But it's not like you got a hawkish defense secretary. It's not like, okay, you have these left-wing progressive D-bags talking about how we have to inspect our troops for tattoos that might be considered offensive to some of the transgendered people on the base. No, you can recover from that with a fairly aggressive defense secretary. But Mattis is a statement. It's a statement. Mattis is a phone call to Taiwan, is what it is. Mattis is exactly the guy we need. We've been through this so many times together, us Stratosphere Loungers, and I'm not going to get into this again, but it is, in fact, I think, absolutely true that the weaker you are, the more dangerous the world becomes, and the best way to prevent a war is to look like you're ready to go and fight one right now. I don't think there's really any question about that. So the appointment of Mad Dog Mattis, just the name, should inspire a little bit of fear in our enemies. Our allies, who used to like us or love us, have been sold out by Barack Obama and his big Middle Eastern policy of aligning with Iran. They don't trust us. And our enemies don't fear us because he's a chicken-armed little, scrawny man-child. And he thinks he's the greatest diplomat in the world. And he's not. And he's not very strong. And he's not very good. And Hillary Clinton is not a very smart person. And neither is John Kerry. So when you come in and basically say, we're going to make a statement here about the U.S. military, that in itself is just a huge win. Even if Mattis didn't do anything, even if Mattis didn't really change the direction of the Department of Defense, just the announcement of him is a tremendous signal, And I would imagine, I'm sure I'll hear back from it shortly in the comment section here. I would imagine if you're in the military and thinking very seriously about getting out for years and years and years, and you hear that Mad Dog Mattis is going to be the new defense secretary, you would rethink that decision. I have said, and I would like to hope this is the case, that if Trump is really smart, he will basically say we're going to make a lot of cuts in the wastefulness of the defense purchase, and we're going to take most of those cuts to pay off the debt and buy better weapons. However, we are going to say to any actual warfighter who was a combat veteran, if you left the military because of all of the political correctness, we want you back, and we will pay you the rate you were getting paid for the entire time you were gone. If you're a combat officer and or a combat enlistment, a combat rifleman, if you left because of political correctness and you left when you were a major, then you come back. We need you. And we will pay you a major salary for the entire time that you were gone. That would be awesome. That'd be absolutely fantastic. Now, the big question is, what happens when you set a guy like that loose upon such corruption? My friend Foghorn says he's the best boss he ever had. And see, Mad Dog Mattis and all of this stuff would be impressive and would serve the purpose of the defense secretary if he was just simply a barking mad dog. But he's not. He's extraordinarily intelligent and extraordinarily perceptive, and he understands leadership. And that's what we need in the military, obviously. I mean, technology is great, weapon systems are great, but ultimately, when it's all said and done, it comes down to morale. And Mattis is the guy. I mean, everybody talks about his, look, I come in peace. I didn't bring any artillery, but I'm begging you with tears in my eyes to remember that if you F with me, I'm going to kill you all. He basically said that to Iraqi leaders. Be pleasant, be polite, and have a plan to kill everybody you see. That is the kind of thing that makes liberals' head explode. So you'd be worth it just for that. But that is in fact exactly what you want. Exactly what you want. It's the mailed it's the iron fist inside the velvet glove, right? Be professional and be polite. We're professional, polite people here in America. We like to get along with people, and we enjoy getting along with everybody. However, we have a plan to kill every single one of you. So don't F with us, because we're not in the mood for it anymore. And when you send that signal out, liberals think, oh my God, it's going to make war more likely. No, you idiot. It's going to make war far less likely. Far less likely. So Mattis is inspired. Since we're talking about appointments, as we tape this, I don't think there's been a confirmation of Secretary of State. And I've been asked before what I think about Romney as Secretary of State. And I think it's a brilliant decision. I think it's brilliant, brilliant, brilliant decision. And I'll tell you why. There are two reasons why I think it's brilliant. First of all, the very fact that Donald Trump and Mitt Romney were discussing it, the fact that it was even up for discussion, once again, is another wedge on who is this Donald Trump really. Is he, in fact, a guy who's a businessman who's got his personal quirks, but business is business, and let's do some business? Or is he an out of control, overly emotional child who simply has to have his way? And when a guy like Donald Trump calls in not only an adversary, this guy's not only just an adversary. Ted Cruz and all the rest of these guys were adversaries. Here's a guy who basically got out of bed, put on his clothes, and went down to the mall in order to preach against you. If Donald Trump even had a conversation and a discussion with Romney about him being Secretary of State, that says so much about Donald Trump. It says so much about him that's good. It's enormously relieving to me. So let's take that out of the picture for a moment and just talk about Romney as a choice. Some people say, you don't want a guy who hates you in the Secretary of State position. My feeling is if I hated Donald Trump and I thought he was an idiot, and if I did nothing but campaign against him because he's a shallow-minded, arrogant fool, and then the next day I get a phone call saying, hey, Bill, how would you like to be Secretary of State? My opinion of him would go up, and certainly my opinion of him what do you say to that? It's an incredibly, it's not just a magnanimous offer, it's a brilliant offer. It's a chance to say, look, this is business. We want the best person for the job. Mitt Romney's the guy. And I think Mitt Romney is the best guy. In a nutshell, Romney serves a lot of purposes. First of all, Romney is an extremely good negotiator. He's a smart businessman. He knows how to negotiate, and he's a tough negotiator. That's important. Also important is that the State Department is so corrupt. I mean, these people were basically saying, we're not going to release Hillary's emails because if we do, she won't be president. And so the State Department, of all the agencies that 8 years of Obama have corrupted, you got a pretty strong case that state is the most corrupt of them all. Romney has had experience and has a reputation of a guy who goes into a failing situation and cleans it up. Obviously, with the Winter Olympics is one case, but essentially what you do when you decide to whether bankrupt a company, shut it down, or keep it going is you have to go in there and take a cold, clear-eyed look at what's working and what's not working and what can be saved, and then throw away the rest. That alone, I think, is a high recommendation for Mitt Romney. However, here's the main reason I personally think Mitt Romney would be the best choice for Secretary of State. Mitt Romney, in terms of appearance, in terms of manner, in terms of many things, character, all of this, he's the anti-Trump. Now, the president is the president. I don't see Romney running his own foreign policy and Trump, snoozing in a hammock down by the river. Trump is rather fond of saying, you're fired. So I don't think he'd set up a rogue State Department. On the contrary, I think Mitt Romney had an awful lot of great input on what the State Department should be doing, and I think he's a patriot. I do. I've always felt that he was. Felt he was a smart guy and a patriot. But anyway, I'm beating around the bush. The main thing that I really would like about Mitt Romney is Mitt Romney as the face of America. I just don't know how you'd improve on it, honestly. Mitt Romney looks like the President of the United States. And for all of those Europeans who are whining and crying and bitching and moaning about how awful, awful, awful Donald Trump is and what an embarrassment it is, and oh my God, what is he going to do? What are our allies going to think? If Mitt Romney shows up and charms the clothing off of you, he is the face of America overseas, and it's a heck of a face. It's a heck of a voice. It's a heck of a look. It's a heck of a guy. He's really got a perfect choice in Mitt Romney. And again, most impressive to me is what it says about Trump. Just the fact that he's being discussed, just the fact that they're talking about him in the same sentence is an incredible endorsement of Donald Trump's character. Now, for those of you who think I've gone full Trump and that you should never go full Trump, I haven't gone full Trump. I have had a number of concerns about Donald Trump, and I've seen a fair amount of evidence to warrant some of these concerns. The KKK thing we talked about earlier is one of them. However, there have been a bunch of issues where I would like to be proven wrong about him, and I was proven wrong with Mattis, and I've been proven wrong with at least the mention of Romney, because that means that Donald Trump is not a total victim of his out-of-control ego. Trump is a businessman, and he's going to be the kind of businessman that basically is going to get the best person for the job. Couldn't do better than that. I'm delighted, and I'm happy with all of his picks. Very, very happy. When you pick Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, and you realize that Sessions has got one of the strongest anti-illegal immigration stances in Washington, you're talking about forget about Sessions. Trump is basically saying, no, I mean it. I'm not kidding around. I'm gonna do what I said I'm gonna do. I'm very, very, very pleased. And everything I've seen about Donald Trump since the election, with a couple of minor flashes, has been very impressive to me. Let's keep it up. This is a great one. Matthew Lloyd wants to know, or says anyway, Bill, this last election seems to have solidified the death of the mainstream media. Amen. Since the election of Trump, alternative conservative media is celebrating a well-deserved victory. Could that victory be short-lived? Now we're hearing calls to suppress fake news, of which, of course, means conservative news. Alternative conservative media is almost totally reliant on platforms controlled and increasingly censored by the progressive left. He said regressive left, which is correct, like YouTube, Facebook, and so on. What's the solution to overcoming this fatal flaw present in the alternative conservative media? Great question. Step 3 of my plan, which is about to be released, the third step of the plan video, is that we have to outflank the mainstream media. And outflanking them doesn't mean defeating them. It means just ignoring them and going around them, literally walking around them. And the good news is that's not going to take much effort, because they're dying on their own. And whether Clinton had won or Trump had won, their credibility, what was left of it, the thin, tattered shreds of it, is now utterly gone. When you find out that a network has been handing one of the candidates the questions from the upcoming debate in advance, I think at this point you're pretty much branded. So their credibility is evaporating, but that's not what's causing their destruction. They're being destroyed by the internet. And the stronger the structure was originally, the longer it will take for the internet to erode it away. But it's happening all over the place. I mean, Newsweek went out of business, and the New York Times circulation is just plummeting, and CNN and all the rest. And people, young people, I'm one of them. I'm not that young, but I don't watch CNN. I get all of my information from the web, all of it. I get a lot of it from Facebook. I get it from Instapundit. I get it from Drudge Report. All of this, and I look at some hostile things too. So what is happening there is I just think it's profoundly interesting. They're on their way down, Matthew. They're really on their way down now. One of the things that that I think is so important, and I say in the plan video here, is that, what's different about the world now, or at least recently in the last decade or so, is that right now there's 80 million Americans walking around with high-definition television cameras in their pockets. High-definition television cameras in 80 million hands. And when CNN, just as an example of the mainstream media, if there's a riot, let's say, CNN gets a call saying, hey, guess what? There's a riot downtown. And CNN goes, my God, we have to cover this. So then the call goes out, and a crew is assembled. And I'm sure they have a fairly ready crew, but that means they have to get up and they have to get into the van, and they have to close the doors, load the equipment if it's not already loaded, and then the van has to travel all the way over to where the riot is. At that point, they have to set up a perimeter. They can't drive right to the center of the riot. They have to kind of stand outside the edges of the riot. And while they're standing outside the edges of the riot, they have to set up that gigantic, huge microwave periscope thing they've got, and then they have to light this guy, turn on the lights, got to get his mic going, his sound going, making sure that everything's good. We got the link. Yes. Are we communicating with the studio? Yes. And by the time they start to report on the riot's over. But the thing that's new now is that the riot is over, and by the time CNN turns on the first frame of the riot is not only essentially over, but millions of people have seen it before CNN even goes live, because it takes a while for them to get their stuff out there. And meanwhile, one of their 2 or 20 or 50 or 100 of these 80 million people have uploaded high-definition camera to the web, and millions and millions and millions of people have seen this while CNN is driving on the way to set up to cover the story. So they're done. And good riddance. And there's good news, and it's both good news. The good news is that the signal will get out, and that the media doesn't control the signal anymore. And that's also the good news, because it doesn't mean a conservative media. It means the truth will get out. That's important to us as conservatives for two reasons. One of them is we are hang on a second, I got a little distracted by something I saw over there. I've just completely lost my train of thought. I hate it when that happens. But in any event, the mainstream media is on its way out. Oh, I remember now. We don't want a conservative media. If we had a biased conservative media, we'd make the same idiotic mistakes that these Democrats did. We'd just be hearing what we want to hear, and everybody wants to hear what they want to hear. And it turns out, no. The truth is going to get out, and that helps us enormously. And one of the really most huge things out there, thank you, Silent Gloves, is the fact that Donald Trump is tweeting. It's going to be the first Twitter presidency. Obviously, Obama had a Twitter account, and obviously it's run by some senior-level staffer and so on, and it's like, hey, nice clock, Ahmed, would you like to bring it to the White House? It's a public relations thing. Obama's tweeting was a public relations aspect. It's like any company. It's like, Kellogg's, cornflakes. Do you have a presence on Twitter now, Kellogg's? Oh, yes, absolutely. We have 7,000 people following us because there's 7,000 Americans who can't wait to hear what the latest new box design is for Rice Krispies. So that's the kind of thing that Obama did, was just kind of mandatory, essentially required in this day and age Twitter accounts. Trump is talking to the American people in 140 characters or 144, whatever it is. He's speaking directly to the American people. Now, it doesn't sound very presidential. Trump's not very good with that anyway. It sounds a bit petulant or a bit impulsive. But he is talking directly to the American people through Twitter. It's like he's a hostage, which he is. He's a hostage of the information bandits. And the Washington correspondents are waking up to the fact that they know that they were responsible for getting him elected because they covered him all the time and because they mocked him so much and made so many people so damn angry that they decided to get up and vote for the first time in 50 years just to show him. But they're terrified because Donald Trump doesn't need White House correspondents. He doesn't need them. He doesn't have to have them. He has to get a message out to the American people. He's got a lot of ways to do it in social media, among other things. He's got a much bigger following than President Obama does, a much, much, much bigger following than Hillary Clinton. As a matter of fact, if you look at the number of people following Trump on Twitter, it would be an enormous step down in influence for him to just do CNN, ABC, and CBS. Total number of viewers on Twitter is far higher than those shows. So it's great news. Now, as far as the control by Facebook and YouTube and all the rest of it, that is in fact an actual problem, and it's a more subtle problem than it looks. We think that the problem is that Facebook's going to ban somebody or Twitter's going to ban somebody like Milo, and that's obviously a concern. But that's not where the real danger is. The danger is that these algorithms are determined by human beings. They can set the factor any way they want to, and so it's entirely possible for Facebook, for example, to be suppressing my message and the message of other people who have much more reach than me, and there'd be no way to know it. What it would really come down to is my videos might be seen by 70,000 people, when if it was neutral, it might be seen by 400,000 people, and if it was pro-conservative, it might be seen by several millions of people. And you've got no way to tell. You've got no way to tell what's actually happening, behind the curtain there. So that is a problem. I know there's a conservative Twitter out there. I don't know whether these things are going to take off. I suspect they're probably not. They'll take off if it turns out that enough people leave Twitter because it's just biased. It's so biased. By the way, when they do things like ban Milo, their stock price goes way down. Because even though all of the people who run Twitter are incredibly progressive, the people who put the money into Twitter are not. And they have an opinion about alienating half of the country. Same is true for Facebook. So yes, it's a problem. And it's going to be a creeping behind the scenes problem, Matthew. It's going to be the kind of thing that you have to be on guard for. And it would be very difficult to detect, I suspect. But overall, the fact that anybody with a camera can upload news directly to the internet, and I use the footage of Hillary Clinton on my plan video stumbling into the van. She stumbled as she stepped off the curb. No, she collapsed into the van. And, who are you going to believe? Me or your lying eyes? One of the expressions that millennials use a lot is going to be my mantra here at this organization, and that is pics or it didn't happen. If you don't have video, then as far as this society today is concerned, it didn't happen. Hillary Clinton damn near won this election because all of her emails were in print. And when you see a print of emails and it says Clinton : something outrageous, your brain does not react to that in the same way as your brain would react if it turned out you saw Hillary Clinton or at least heard her voice saying this. I don't like it. It's just we just have to go. We just have to understand that that's the case. And so we have tremendous opportunities to beat them, Matthew. As a matter of fact, I don't think it's opportunities anymore. I think I've been saying for a long time, I'd like to say that the economics of the information age are on our side. It means the signal gets out. Everything about third age information society is it's smaller, faster, more local, far less expensive, much quicker, much more agile, much more sensitive to change, and all the rest. And that favors us, not them. They have a very top-down, second-wave industrial structure to the economy and to their political parties. Both parties do. But as we say, if I can order steel in China, right now, order steel from China right now, how is Washington going to control this? No way. No way. So that's helping us quite a lot. It's helping us actually quite a lot. And there was one other point I wanted to make here. Is this victory short-lived? Folks, this is the most important thing I can say. It's essentially what I'm going to be making my position going forward from this point on. We have been given a reprieve, but not a pardon. We have 2 years to reintroduce Americans to America. We have 2 years to make an entirely new crop of voters who've never voted for Hillary, never voted for anybody before. We've got 2 years to get the American people understanding some of these basics. This is not going to be a war of bullets and bayonets. It's a war of images and ideas. And that is, whether we understand it as a political group or not, that's the reality of it. And this one was very close, believe it or not, exceedingly close. And it shouldn't be. I don't think we're going to get a chance again because the demographics, despite this last win, are against us. Every day, more people, more young people can call themselves socialist. They don't know what socialism is, and they don't behave like socialists. No, there's no evidence that they're socialist, but they call themselves socialist. And because they're good socialists, and because they want to go along with everybody else, that's what happens, especially when you're a young teenager or young adult, is that they've been told that the only cool position, the only kind position, the only decent position is to become a socialist and a far left progressive. And so we make more of them every single day. We make more of them every day, and that is not changed by the election. We have got to start getting these messages out to young people and that's what I want to do. I just want to outflank this entire millennial cohort. I just want to just say they're gone. It's not their fault. They were raised by people who wanted to be their friends rather than their parents, and they don't have any sense of, as of generalizing as always. But you get that. You've all heard the millennial rant before. I want to go to people who are 15, 16, 17 years old now, 18 years old, people who are going to vote for the first time ever in 2018 and 2020. And I want to convince people that this is the way to go. And this is going to take some resources. But they may be there. And this is really going to be the issue, frankly, is when you try to convince people that this battle is being fought in the media, in the pop culture, number one, can you get conservatives to believe that's true? And number two, can you get them to commit resources, yes or no? Because Soros has put hundreds of millions, probably billions of dollars into this when you look at everything. And Zuckerberg and Spielberg and, Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, all of this billions, hundreds of millions of dollars going into the progressive cause and the progressive movement. And that doesn't mention the $2 trillion a year that gets shoveled into progressivism in terms of like, here's something for you from this guy, give me this, I'm going to give it to you. So we really have to put up or shut up. And there have been moments when I've been perplexed, let's just say, at people who say, well, the country's going to hell and I don't know what to do about it. I say, well, here's something you can do about it. Well, it doesn't seem like a wise investment. You could say that all the money you give to me or anybody else for that matter is maybe going down the black hole of loss in terms of return on your money. But the money you would be giving to me or other people to use to win this fight is a percentage of your total money. And it's well below 50%, and it's way, way, way below 94% of your total income, which is what you're going to be paying in taxes if you do not turn young people around. Every day there are more of them. Each one of them has a vote. The idea that young people could be so passionate about Bernie frickin' Sanders is an indication of how seriously brainwashed these kids are. And they can come out of it. They've never had to think before. The smoke comes out of their ears. But it can be done. And it's actually easy to do. It's just there's a whole lot of people you have to do it to. We have to flip these people back to reason and logic and evidence and passion and fun and romance and sexiness. All of this, we got to get these things, we got to get harnessed with these things instead of fighting them all. I know how to do that, and some other people do too. Right, Linda, thank you. Bye-bye. So anyway, 2 to go. I think I'm going to have to make it relatively short tonight. Our friend Cindy Lucin is back, and she says, it's been such a long 8 years, I've almost forgotten what life was like in the good old days when I never gave politics much thought. It seems like there is no going back. Is that really where we are at, Bill? I wish I could tell you yes. But no. This bears repeating as many times as I can repeat it. That we cannot win. We can only tie. They can win. Because the left never gives up. And it's not like they never give up because they're superhuman people. And it's not like they never give up because, any reason you want to list. It's not that the left never gives up because of the quality of their people. The left never gives up because the left is entropy. Entropy is what's driving progressivism. They talk about how progressive they are. Just put that aside for a second. It is easier to give. It is if I'm a person and I've got two political parties and one of them says you need to work hard, study hard, invest 15, 20, 30 years of sweat and labor, at which point you will not only have a significant amount of money, you'll have complete control over your own lives. You'll be married to somebody, and you'll have children, and you'll be happier than you could ever imagine. Versus somebody's also saying to a 20-year-old person, "Nah, you do all the drugs you want, all the sex you want. You don't have to study, and you don't have to work. All you have to do is vote for us every 2 years, and we'll give you this stuff. It's not great stuff, but you don't have to work. You can play video games all day, and never have to go out there. Which one do you think is easier to sell? It's no contest. Liberty and freedom requires work and effort, and the universe is not spinning towards more complexity. It's winding down. It's getting less different. The heat differences between the hot and the cold are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Eventually, the universe will be one temperature, and that's what progressivism is. It's the easy way to live. It's back to the days of the entire history of human government has been this kind of thing. It's been entropy since there's been human beings, and we're the freaks and we're the exception. Many people and many psychologists, Eric Fromm and a bunch of others, have basically said that most people fear freedom. They don't want it, and they would rather they'd rather have their choices made for them than face the responsibility and the anxiety of making their own decisions. It sounds very alien to most of us, but it's true. Many, many, many people would rather be given okay stuff than work hard to get great stuff. And so they win. Rust never sleeps, and neither does progressivism. It's just running down. And it's easier to have a backyard that's nothing but weeds than it is to have a backyard that's nicely mowed grass and beautiful rose bushes. One of them is easier than the other. It's much, much easier because one of them requires you to do nothing. The other one requires you to work hard and all the time. And once you've got your beautiful garden back there and you've got your beautiful rose bushes and you can sit and look at it, you don't get to say we've won, because once you walk away from that garden, the weeds start growing again. You have to go and get them out. And if you don't, then it's going to be a weed patch shortly. The weeds, on the other hand, can win. There's not going to be a case where a back patch of weeds and overgrowth is going to turn into a manicured garden with rose bushes. It doesn't work that way. There's not those seeds going to blow in there. It's not going to happen. It's a one-way street. It's a one-way street. It's a one-way street that absolutely favors the left as they exist today. It's a much harder sell, but we're much happier people. You wouldn't know it from listening to our messaging, which is always about we shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that. Well, they're right. We shouldn't do this or that, but what should we do? And why should we do it? No one's making this case. No one's talking about the joys of working hard and failing to finally succeed, and how that's simply the best feeling in the world, and how people are taking drugs simply to get that feeling. And the more drugs they take, the more drugs they need to take, and that feeling gets shorter and briefer, and as everything else in your life falls apart, you're in this downward spiral, and there you go. You can do it. You can do it. But you have to lead people by the hand in little steps, which is why these first 15 videos are so simple. Money. What's money? I'm going to start this thing with, before I tell you what money is, let me tell you what money isn't. If you search for Google for rich man, I'm going to find an image of a guy in front of a spectacular house with a yacht and a helicopter in the yard and everything. If you search for an image for a guy who has a lot of money, this is what you get. You get a guy in a big house, well-dressed, limousine, sports car rather, yacht out in the back on the ocean, and a helicopter. This is a rich guy. When you Google an image for a guy who has a lot of money, but there's no money in that frame. There's no money in the picture. You don't see any money. You see wealth, but you don't see money. You see wealth. And this is the first thing you have to convince people. You are looking at wealth. If I gave you a ton of money, if I gave you a room full of $100 bills, if I filled this studio up with $100 bills to the top of the ceiling, but you couldn't exchange them for anything, then they would be worse than worthless. It's just a piece of paper. So the money is what we exchange in order to get the things that we want. When people realize that, there's an amazing wake-up. And another thing that money is interesting about money is that money doesn't care who owns it. Money doesn't care if you're black or gay or old or young or immigrant, Mexican. It doesn't care whether you're here legally, illegally. It doesn't care. Money doesn't care. Money goes to where the demand is. Money flows like water to where the greatest demand is. And that decision is made by hundreds of millions, billions of people, really, who are voting on their own, and the money goes to where it needs to go. These people talk about a CEO who makes, $5 million a year. He's got a company of 5,000 people. He's sending 5,000 families rent, paychecks every month, and he makes $5 million, and that's a crime because the other guys only make $50,000. But Beyonce makes $30 million, and LeBron James makes $30 million. Don't share it with anybody. They're $30 million. Why? Because that's where the money wants to go. That's where the money decides to go. And you can make the argument that money has intelligence because money is inert. There's nothing, it's a piece of paper. And if money is going someplace, it's because people are pushing it there. And this is a very democratic thing. Money doesn't say, money doesn't get to say that, we think that that Lady Gaga's worth $30 million, but since she's a woman, we're only going to give her 10. Money doesn't behave that way. Money doesn't care. Money doesn't care. You go to where the demand is. And if you tell people that you can print money but not print wealth, you realize that the more money you print, the less the money is worth. If you have, sometimes you just have to get very simple with things. If you have an economy that consists of $100. There's $100 in the entire economy as a group of people, and they've got a small group, and the total amount of dollars in this economy at the moment is $100. If you have a shiny rock or something that's worth $10, you have 10% of the money supply. If they keep printing money so that there's $1,000, now you've got 1% of the money supply. The more money they print, the less your investment is worth. $10 in a $100 economy is a big number. It's 10%. $10 in a $1,000 economy is a much smaller number. And $10 in a multi-million-dollar economy is a speck. So the more money they print, the less things are worth, the less your stuff is worth. And these are the fundamental things that people need to know. Because most of these young people, if you ask them, where's the money going to come from for this? They'll say, from the government. What do you mean, where's it going to come from? The government's going to provide it. How did the government get their money? I don't know. Taxes? Yeah, less than half. The rest of it they print. And every time they print more money, they're debasing everything. They're lowering the value of your hoodie and of your Xbox and all the rest of it. Simple things, really. But once they understand it, they can start to see the light. Some of them can, anyway. I think let's do it for the night because I need to get back to do some work here. I love this question, actually. From Chris Johnson says, why don't those who want to turn our country into a socialist mess move to one of the other socialist messes around the world? Why fight conservatives here when everything they want is already out there? Are they so afraid of work that they can't pack their own bags and head to the airport? And that's from Chris Johnson. That's a terrific question. And I used to wonder about this for years. I started doing, eject, 12 years ago, something like that, 13. And this entire time, I've wondered why these rich celebrities don't go to the socialist world that they're trying to create here. I couldn't make any sense out of it. Not only celebrities, but most people could afford to move to Sweden, and many Americans have got enough skills to be able to be immigrants to Sweden or France or any of these other places. So why don't they go? You can say, well, this is my home and I want to change it. Yes, but that's not the root of the issue, I think, Chris. The root of the issue is this. Progressives have to tell other people what to do. They need the thrill of controlling people. I think it's Robert Maybury who does these Uncle Eric books. In a book called Whatever Happened to Justice, said that he thinks it's evolutionary, that among certain people, power is not just an aphrodisiac, it's a hit. It's a dopamine hit. He was saying, look, if you're out there, 20,000 years ago and you are a 150-pound human and you bring down a 2,000-pound mammoth, it's going to take some doing. It's going to take some enthusiasm. You're going to be selected for that power, that sense of power. And he's saying that political power over people gives some people that same thrill. And I think that's absolutely right. And this is why, and this is another thing that's really interesting, isn't it? All throughout history and all throughout the world, politicians are despised. That doesn't really make sense, does it? Unless there's something wrong with them. It doesn't make any sense unless there's something wrong with them. It's a statistical impossibility unless there's something that's built into the people that become politicians. And what I think that thing is it's a lust for power. Now, they're not the only people with a lust for power, but people who are smart or hardworking or industrious, but people who have vision or all three or whatever, they may want power, but they understand that if they start working hard, they'll get it. And they see that their lives are under control, that they can get whatever money or power they want for themselves. They don't have to hassle other people. But there's a whole species of people that know that they cannot have these things because they're either not smart enough or they're not hardworking enough, usually B. And so they get their satisfaction by telling other people what to do. And it's power. It's absolute power. And it's life or death power, really, when you get right down to it. There's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with the kind of person who says that I'm going to do this in my house and you cannot, I'm not doing this in my house and you cannot do it in your house either. Now, I know a lot of people say that's what the Republicans are, trying to legislate the bedroom, and to some degree they're right about that. It's none of your business. If we could just get that alone, we'd be fine. We'd lose the social battles, so-called social battles. We're losing them anyway. I think that that you have to say, why is it so important to you to tell me, that I can't have a choice in where to send to schools, my kids? And why is it so important to you to tell me that I get a $1,000 fine for throwing a Frisbee on the beach? He also said something in the same thing as a great little book called Whatever Happened to Justice. It might have been in the Penny Candy one. But he said something that was really, really profound. As a matter of fact, I think that this insight that this Richard Maybury has really, really opened up an enormous cavern of things that I didn't really understand before. Give me a big flashlight in there. And that's simply this. He says in this book that we've been told, because it makes sense, that government raises taxes in order to supply services. He said, but that's not true. They supply services in order to raise taxes. And then I thought about it, and I thought, here in California, we have some of the worst roads in the country. We've got the biggest budget in the country, and people in California are retiring at $250,000 a year for civil servants for 40 years. So you have to ask yourself, whose vision of government is right? Is it the liberal vision of government, where these are patriotic, altruistic people who simply need to raise the resources to provide the value? Or are they a bunch of crooks that are basically stealing from other people because they have the coercive power of the law behind them and don't really give a damn about the people? What's the evidence tell you? In California, the evidence tells you that the roads suck and the pension plans are terrific if you're in politics. That tells me that these people are putting their income ahead of what they're supposed to do, and it really does justify the argument. And believe me, folks, if you think about this just for a little bit, you'll be amazed at how clarifying this is. The government does not raise taxes in order to provide services. They provide services as an excuse for them to raise the taxes. And I think it's self-evident, because it's, even as conservatives, liberals, all of us, we talk about the government as if it was a giant machine. This government thing, and we have to adjust the machine. And when we talk about changing government or making government smaller, we have this vague kind of sense that we can go in there and turn some things and loosen some things and open some valves and close others, and it will become a more efficient machine. And that's how everybody looks at government, because it's composed of millions of people. But that's the point. Government is not a machine. Government is not a computer program that's been installed by aliens with a giant reptile mouth that we just shovel our money into so that the rain continues to fall. Government is a group of people who are selected for power over other people who it matters to. It matters that they have power over people. How else can you explain a guy who spends $3 or $4, $5, $6 million running for a job that pays $80,000 a year? It's power. It's a hit. And so you've got an entire group of people who get together and say, if we do this right, we can take as much from the working people, the rich people, the smart people, the hardworking people. We can take a lot from them. I bet we could take half. I bet if we did it slowly, we could take half, and they wouldn't do anything about it. And that's what it is. It's a scheme. And if it wasn't that way, then we would have excellent roads in California and people be retiring on $60,000 a year or $40,000, because we put the roads ahead of the politicians and the public sector employees. But we don't. There's your evidence. And the fact that every society in history, since there's been writing, has all across the world realized that politicians are the lowest of the low. We never really knew why, right? Everybody always says, oh, as a politician. And there's a vague sense that the problem with politicians is that they don't keep their word. When you ask people what it is about politicians you don't like, most everybody will say, well, they just say what they want to say. They say what we want them to say in order to get elected, and once they're elected, they don't live up to their promises. That's not it. That's not why they're, generally speaking, bad people. There are exceptions. Most of them are bad people because they have only one way to power and one way to forget power even. If you're a bureaucrat, you have one way to make a living for your family, and that is to maintain and hopefully increase the bureaucracy. And that's why you end up with these insane situations like cost plus purchasing of F-35s, and which incentivize everything that you don't want. The more expensive it is, the better it is for the people involved with it. The more time it takes, the better it is for the people involved with it. And all of these things are working against common sense. We have become so affluent as a people and as a civilization. There is so much wealth around us that we are, in fact, tolerating not just the fact that they're going to take half of our wealth, because the other half is still getting us a pretty nice life, but we're also tolerating the fact that they're debasing the currency because we don't feel it, we don't see it. They're taking these resources and they are stealing $2,000 or $3,000 billion a year from the rest of us. It's just unbelievable. It's the biggest racket there is. And that is a large sum of money, which is why I think, maybe just to close, if Donald Trump is able to do one thing to save this country, one thing, achievable thing, if he proposes a flat tax that is signed into law, I don't care what the percentage is. I actually don't care what the percentage is, because it's not going to be the 45% that I pay right now. The main reason that would save the country is because if everybody pays a tax, then everybody has skin in the game, and they have the same amount of skin in the game. Big guys have a lot of skin, little guys have less skin. But if you pass a flat tax, it's the end of progressivism. It's the end of progressivism. That's why it's called a progressive tax, by the way. They call it a progressive tax because the richer you get, the more you have to pay. And that makes sense to people who don't work, right? It makes sense to people who don't work. It makes sense to people who want to have control over your lives for some reason because they're genetically defective. It makes sense to them. The more he makes, the more we should take. How's that work? Exactly. You can't get away with that kind of larceny unless you demonize wealth. And they've been doing a great job of that for the last 40, 50 years. Every single movie you see, every time the bad guy is a businessman or it's a corporation, it's a corporation, it's a corporation, it's a corporation, blah, 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 blah. The difference between governments and corporations is this. Corporations are a group of people that get together to accomplish a purpose. Governments are a group of people that get together to accomplish a purpose. The corporation achieves money and power by providing services to you, and if you don't like the services, you can leave them and go somewhere else and get better services for less money. And the government has a gun to your head. You don't get to say, I don't want these brushes. When the government shows at your door and say, hey, we got an incredible sale on these hairbrushes here. They're only $60 each. I'm going to put you down for 8 of them. You don't get to say, I don't want these. I have no need for them. They look like crappy brushes anyway, and I don't need it. Just go away. You don't get to say that. You got to buy the brushes. And if you don't, then they'll come and take it. So it's a bit of a problem, isn't it? However, with all of that said, this Trump victory is enormous. It's not, the enormity of it really doesn't have much to do with Donald Trump. Andrew Breitbart was so correct, and all of us who knew him and all of us who've been doing this for a while understand he's right. The enemy is the media. The enemy is the pop culture. The enemy is the voice of people telling you what to think and what to do. Donald Trump, and I mean to do a firewall on this or several, Donald Trump was elected by Hollywood celebrities and by news people. Every single time they would do a sketch on Saturday Night Live that mocked conservatives, or any time they did a sketch talking about how stupid Trump is and how stupid his supporters are, every time I saw people like Mark Ruffalo getting on camera and telling me to do the right thing and vote for their candidate, I got more and more and more behind this Donald Trump guy. They caused it. It's a rebellion against being told what to do. And if you can change the tax code, that is the biggest rebellion against being told what to do. If everybody's paying a tax, everybody, then who's going to vote for higher taxes? And if the progressives are stuck with the fact that they cannot take from the rich and give to the poor in order to buy their votes, why would you want progressives? If there's a flat tax and everybody pays the same, which is the only possible moral outcome, because if you've got a progressive tax, that basically means that, you're paying 26% until you make a certain amount of money, and at that point you're suddenly paying 35% or whatever. What happens on that line? What happens at that dollar amount that changes you? Why do they have permission to take your money at $400,000 but not take as much money at $399,999? It doesn't make any sense. We just go along with it. because it has a certain kind of a feel to it. He's got a lot, so he should give more. He's got a lot because he made a lot. He made a lot, created a lot of wealth. Anyway, it's a flat tax would be the end of progressives, because there would no longer be people who would be defined as rich. When you can draw a line in the sand and basically say, at this dollar threshold, whatever it is, let's say it's $400,000, you make less than this, you pay this. You make more than that, you pay this. And with wealth being demonized, essentially what they're saying is, you make less than this amount, you're a good person and the government is here to help you. You make more than this amount, and you're an evil person trying to kill the earth and burn our babies alive. So which one are you? It doesn't happen that way with a flat tax. Everybody's equal. And rich people pay a lot more in taxes than poor people. This is another thing they don't understand, these idiots. Rich people don't pay income tax, not significant income tax. They don't have income the way we talk about income. They've got investments, they've got capital gains, they've got all this stuff, but they don't get a paycheck that that somebody docks. They're very smart, and that's why they're rich. And I have a company here, I have an LLC, and I have all this stuff, and I paid for it. It came out of my money. I'm the guy that wrote the check for all these things, including the chair and the headphones you see here. But in most cases, I wrote the check because I could either write the check for the headphones or write the check to the government, one or the other. So it's a tax deduction, and that's why it works. They are done, I think, if you have a flat tax. I just really do think they're done. Anyway, relatively short show tonight. What is that? I can't quite say it. 122 maybe, somewhere around 100 an hour and 20 minutes, something like that. Who cares? Anyway, thanks again for joining us here. Sorry this one's a little bit shorter, but I'm going to have to be working in that direction. And to all of you out there, as always, thanks especially to our members for making all of this stuff possible. And if you'd like to help, we certainly could use your help at BillWhittle.com. Somebody's got to get this message out of here. It doesn't produce itself, I'm sorry to say. And right now, I need additional funds, because I bet you 90% of my time, maybe 95% of every day, including weekends, is dedicated to editing. And that's not the best use of my time. In any event, thanks very much for joining us and watching with us. And hopefully we'll see you next one. You will certainly see us again for episode 130. 138 is next. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Anyway, guys, it's a much, much, much more fun way to say goodnight now than it was before November 8th. And we should enjoy the victory, but we have to be careful of the idea that, okay, we're out of the woods now, because we're never out there. You're never out of the woods, ever. It's not fun, it's not nice, but it's true. And that's what you got. So anyway, thanks very much for joining us. We will hopefully see you next week for Stratosphere Lounge episode 138. Until then, take care of yourselves. You live in a great country and you're surrounded by great people, and don't you forget it.